Welcome to Grappling with the Great, a forum for promoting an ethical mindset and ethical decision-making to help us more clearly see both sides of complex issues, better navigate the moral challenges of everyday life. I'm Rabbi Yonason Goldson, and I would like to welcome my transatlantic guests today. With me is Toni McLelland, who is founder and director of First Life Group. She is a critical friend and business mentor in social justice, mobility, and impact, leading sustainable change through DEIB and compassion. Kathleen O'Sullivan is a leadership coach and host of the Legendary Leaders podcast. She helps female leaders grow their careers, their mindset, their confidence, and sense of self-worth, while enabling them to live a more balanced life that offers more time, more health, and more fun. And Colin Smith, also known as The Listener, works with leaders and professionals to improve the listening, thinking, and relationship skills of individuals and teams. Thank you all for traveling all the way across the ocean to be with me today. And here is our topic. With Taylor Swift's current Eras Tour, the most successful in history, it is inevitable that many Swifties sometimes end up on the same flights, headed for the same concerts. A recent viral TikTok video shows nearly the entire contingent of passengers, together with the flight attendants, joining in a sing-along at 40,000 feet. A few passengers, however, appear less than enthusiastic. In the comments, reactions were predictably mixed. One person wrote, "I feel bad for other passengers, especially those with sensory issues, claustrophobia, or anxiety disorders." Another said, "I would seriously cry if I was on that plane. This is my worst fear." Some referred to the flight as torture or their personal hell, joking that they would escape through the emergency exit if the sing-along happened to them. Here's my personal favorite. First, I thought the plane was going down or something. Then I realized they're just singing Taylor Swift, and I thought, that's worse. Clearly, the large majority of passengers were enjoying themselves. Does that give them the right to inflict discomfort on the minority? Or should the few naysayers just grin and bear it, since so many others are getting so much pleasure from it? What about the flight attendants? Should they participate, try to shut it down, or simply remain neutral? And if it should be stopped, how should that be handled? Lots of angles on this one. The floor is open.
Well, I'm quite happy to kick off and say that I didn't even know that Swifties was a thing until recently. You know, when there was the match that was happening, and I'm quite happy to say that I think it's got to be consideration for others all the way. The flight attendants should really put safety and well-being of others at the forefront of it. And when I say well-being, that is protection from terrible singing as well. But everyone that knows me knows that I love to sing. I'm not great at singing. I don't inflict it upon others because I know better. But I don't want to be a killjoy, but I think safety first. Safety first here. Thank you, Yonason.
All right. If you're feeling a little wishy-washy on this, Toni, feel free to be more assertive.
I'm going to try to other views as well, but for me, this is a black and white case.
I have to say I'm so torn, and I have been thinking about this situation quite for some time. And I said it before you hit the record button, Yonason, that I don't identify myself as a Swiftie at all. I love music, but I would feel it would be a bit torture for me as well. At the same time, but that's a matter of taste. At the same time, though, I also like for people to be passionate about what they enjoy and have fun and, not be, I don't know, interrupted for having some joy. I think for me, the question here is, what does a sing-along mean? Is it a 10-hour sing-along because it's long-haul flight, which I think it is in this case? Is it a couple of songs they are singing, and then we come back to a more peaceful state, and we might recommend to them that they watch the latest gig of Taylor Swift on their little TVs that they have in front of them, for example. But overall, I am with Toni. I think the flight attendants really need to look out and see who are the people on board, how are they doing, and attend to them individually if needed as well to find possible solutions, let it be the noise cancelling headphones or anything like that, at least for that period of time. But in summary, I think it has to be a short period of time of sing along.
I think that's a really good distinction, Kathleen. If everybody bursts into song spontaneously for one song or maybe two, okay, I'm not a big Taylor Swift fan either. I think I sort of like the idea of people coming together and joining and doing something that's uplifting. But if it goes on at length, then that could be onerous for people who aren't really in the mood for it. Colin, what do you think?
Yeah, some great points. And, whilst like Kathleen, I've been sort of pondering it for some time. I don't identify as a Swiftie either. In fact, I'm not sure I'd recognize any of her music if it was presented in front of me. But there is something about being caught up with a group of people spontaneously singing or chanting or anything like that can be uplifting. And I suspect that her music isn't depressive music, so there'll be potentially a happiness part of it. But the other bit for me fundamentally is something I learned from listening to an airline pilot. He said, for me, the number one thing is safety. Safety for the safety for the crew, safety for the passengers, and safety for the plane. Now, I suspect, and I'm playing with this in my mind, that the likelihood is that these fans are young, so they're less likely to get to be threatening towards those people who disagree. However, the people that disagree may well be older and therefore more likely to react, this is just my judgment, towards them and start getting angry, getting aggressive. And that for me is a no-no, and that's where the safety element of this could impact the safety of the crew or the passengers. So there's, again, if it's a short burst of it, I think that's lovely. But I think there's also, I have a phrase I use a lot, which is it depends. And one of the things from Kathleen, could they issue noise cancelling headphones? That could be an interesting way of saying, look, it's not going to go on all the time, but when it does, just pop these on and you'll be fine. So that's my first thoughts on this. Thank you.
When I taught high school, and even now, and I teach adults, I say there are always two safe answers to any question. One is it depends, and the other is it's a matter of dispute. That point is definitely well taken. But this idea of safety, at least here in America, I don't know how prevalent it still is, but I know it's still there. This idea of safe spaces. And safe spaces on American universities, that wasn't a term used to mean people are physically safe. It was a term used to mean people are safe from any type of speech that they might find offensive. And this has become extremely incendiary, because especially colleges, which are supposed to be places of intellectual exploration, and if an idea is presented in a way that's civil and thoughtful, even if I personally don't like it, there's an opportunity to engage. So it's interesting to hear Colin and Toni, both of you, use this idea of safety with respect to singing. And Colin, you did articulate that if people respond negatively to something that a crowd is doing, that could actually lead to some kind of physical danger. Is that ultimately the responsibility of the person who's responding? I get upset, doesn't necessarily give me, well, really doesn't give me the right to then act out in a way that could pose danger to others? Or is it the responsibility of the flight attendants to say, well, let's not even let that situation arise because of the potential for harm?
I think it's about how it's managed, and whilst, you put the word manage and spontaneity in the same sentence, it doesn't quite fit. But I think that prevention is better than cure, or you manage it well. There's what Kathleen said about if it's one or two songs, then it's not too bad. You can manage that so much better. But I'm just kind of thinking about it from a perspective of people that are neurodiverse, for example, people that have got autism. Just sudden noise, it can be quite detrimental to this particular group. I'm all for a sing-song, like I said, especially if it's something that I like, if I know the words, even more so. But it's got to be real consideration for others. But I think some of it also comes from, you hear loud music. If you like the music, it's not too bad. If you don't like the music, it's even worse. If you don't know the words and people are singing badly, that adds to I can't even find a word for it, but that adds to the pain of the situation.
I was reminding myself of a situation where we flew, I can't remember where, but it was my husband and I. We both loved the rugby, and it was a World Cup that was going on. And there was a game, I don't know if the All Blacks played, it doesn't even matter. And there was a game we were really curious about. And we entered the plane, and I remember the pilot immediately highlighted that he will announce the scores and they will celebrate if that team would score a try and so on and so forth. And I remember I got really enthusiastic and happy about it. And there was this sense of community because there were so many people interested in those scores and being updated. And it's a different thing than a sing-along because you get the scores from time to time, right? But at the same time, we felt fantastic about it, and it created banter on the plane, and we made connections, and we had a chit-chat there and a chit-chat there. But I haven't, in honesty, even thought about, was everybody interested in that? How are they feeling about it? I think it's also the responsibility of people on the plane just to check. So when I'm walking around and I'm sharing all the stories and the experiences with other passengers, and I might talk over other passengers, what's their experience? So I think it's the responsibility of ourselves also to pay attention to the people around us, because I'm completely with you, Toni. There are different individuals on that plane. I had somebody sit next to me once who was so scared of flying and literally didn't want to hear anything and to see anything, just wanted to be head down. It would have scared them even more being in such a situation. So how can we also take individual responsibility and look out for the people around us is what I'm trying to say here.
Yeah, I love that point actually, but there's something about flying that's very different for passengers. Like I'm thinking of a bus passenger or a train passenger, things like that, where you can get this sort of thing. But when those passengers are really struggling with flying, it's a different. You don't have. I don't think you have people who have train anxiety to go on a train and be anxious about being on a train. There's something about being in the air which evokes that feeling, and I think we have to. It's that sort of duty of care, and sadly, for me, not everyone. I'd say most people are not really bothered or don't think about other people like that. As you said, there's no sort of tarnish about that, but we're wrapped up in the rugby. Oh, I wonder how they're reacting to it. So it's probably rare that we might consider that. So I think there's something about obviously individual ownership, but and I'm with Toni on this about prevention better than doing something afterwards, and that maybe when this all starts off, or even before, because they may know that there's a lot of Swifties on the plane, that the crew do something. And it might be, time and place. What time of day is this for one of the factors? Another might be the volume. So how loud are they? And also, could they move some of the passengers around that might find this a bit more intimidating? So I think there's lots of scope in this, but my sense of it would be to do something earlier, set the scene, set the boundaries, and go from there.
There's a perpetual tension between the needs and the wants of the individual and the needs and the wants of the collective.
Yeah.
Do we want, I think about a few things, peanut allergies. They're unknown in Israel because one of the favorite snack foods there is something called bombo, which is a peanut-based snack. And every Israeli kid just gets this. And consequently, the tiny few that may have peanut allergies, they just have to accommodate the environment around them. But apparently what's been reported is that because peanut allergies became a concern, we started limiting peanuts, and that has caused the allergies to increase exponentially. What was a tiny minority has now become a serious problem. So the concern over well-being has actually exacerbated the problem. And in other ways, if you've ever sat down next to somebody wearing powerful cologne or perfume that you find noxious, what's the solution there? In other words, I can't not breathe the air. I can't even put on, you talk about sound canceling headphones. I can't put on a gas mask to protect myself. And that might be a lot more intrusive than people singing around me. There are certain problems that seem like there just is no simple solution to them.
But I think that in situations like this, where it could quite easily get out of hand, especially if there's alcohol involved, I think it has to be contained from the start. And when you talked previously about psychological safety, there's the physical safety, but the mental safety as well, and I think that the physical safety is what I'm really thinking about here. Flying, I think, is a little bit different because you can't stop, you can't jump off and have let's take a breather for an hour. It's, it's more complex than that. So the preventative measure is really where I'm going. But I am going to be a bit of a devil's advocate, coming back on what Colin said, because you're saying that perhaps those people that don't, they might want, noise cancelling headsets. But I'm thinking, well, why should I have to move? Why should I? They should have to move because I'm just doing what is naturally expected, So there's a little bit of something in there that is about, it's about that.
I have a comment here from James.
Colin there. Come on, Colin.
He says, I'm sure there are people who struggle with the confinement of a train or other modes of public transportation. I assume he means as well as planes. A big part of this discussion is whose point of view is being centered. I'm not sure I completely grasp his point. Colin, you're nodding. You have a thought there?
Yeah, just my thought that what he was saying is there are people who will struggle. They have to go on the rail, they have to go on the bus, but they really struggle with it. So I'm picking, maybe he's making a good point there. And that was the reason for nodding. He was like, oh yeah, there are people who may well struggle with that.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that was my thought.
I was thinking of a person early on who I know he only would go with his own car where he is in full control, at least of his own driving, stopping and getting out. Everything else where it feels psychologically like I'm putting my mobility into someone else's hands, basically, is a complete no-no. So you never know
Yeah.
what people feel, what they suffer from, what their phobias are. And yeah, I definitely need to be mindful about my assumptions here. But who indeed is at the center in this scenario? I think I understand the question, I think, but please correct me if I'm wrong. Is it the people who are the non-Swifties and who now need to endure the sing-along? Or is it the Swifties to say, let's give them a bit of joy and fun, you know? And I get back to how can we find a compromise between
Well, I actually
both?
think it's the plane's point of view and the safety and the plane's point of view that comes first. Sorry to jump in there.
No, don't worry at all.
Yeah.
I strongly believe that when it is about a sing-along, in this situation, I'm with Toni. I've got to set it up right from the start. Do it in a wonderful way. You don't have to tell people off, but just say in the microphone, "Hey, we have a plane full of Swifties here today. Looking forward to getting to that gig. There might be the one or the other song, but dear Swifties, I would like to ask you such and such and such." And then, as a flight attendant, even though you might want to join in, your responsibility is to walk around
That's right.
and to have a look around and to talk to people and to understand what's going on for them, to ask, to check in. There's nothing else you've got to do apart from all the other safety stuff, obviously, that you would regularly do. And see what is the sense here, because this isn't about majority and minority. This is about people coming together and having needs. And how can I cater to those needs as much as possible without taking the pleasure and the fun away? And that's, I guess, easier said than done.
I love that. I love what you said. And I think the responsibility is to, as we said, set it up early, but also for the flight crew to be checking in with those people that may not be singing along. Are you okay with this? And if not, ask them, apart from stopping it, is there anything that we could do that would make this easier for you? And they may say, well, could we move? Could we do this? Could we do that? But at the end of the day, I think that if you have enough people, because I've been on flights where they've had the peanut allergy and they've therefore not served peanuts and asked that we don't do that. So we're respecting the minority in this case, but actually it's a real a physical safety situation with peanuts. And for those that are struggling with the noise, that could also be a serious safety issue for them.
Yeah.
Obviously, we don't know. So I think it's down to the crew to set it up in the best possible way without making it serious, but also keeping it light. So we're relaxed about the whole thing.
Yeah, I don't know if this has become enough of a phenomenon yet that the flight attendants would have even anticipated it, to be able to think ahead. If you know that something has become more common, then we could sort of plan for it when things do happen spontaneously. As we've said, there's this tension between wanting to let people experience this, really coming together. And one of the themes that I come back to again and again is the focus, certainly in the United States, the focus on personal rights, and a lack of focus on personal responsibility. And if I'm focused on my rights and you're focused on your rights, we're going to bump into each other a lot. But if I'm thinking about taking responsibility for how my actions affect you, and you're thinking about taking responsibility about how your actions affect me, then we're going to start accommodating one another much more easily. And a lot of these problems are going to not become so pronounced. Toni, you look like you had something to say there.
No, it was just based on what you said there. I think that you're absolutely right, Jonathan. But I would also add as well that I don't think the time to start that conversation is when you're thousands of feet up in the air, because we don't know what the outcome's really going to be. But I think fundamentally for me, it's about not being distracted. And even if there is a sing-along on the hour every half an hour, whatever it is, and it's planned for, It's really about those attendants not being distracted by the singing and really staying focused on what they need to do, making sure that when there is singing, that no one's in distress at that time, because I think singing can distract and you can get swept up in the moment, and things can be missed.
Absolutely. There was also a thought that I've had, and I'm not sure where I'm going with this, in all honesty, but lately I've seen a lot of incidents. Obviously, you can see a lot through social media nowadays where incidents have been recorded where people bumped literally into each other on a plane, getting involved in a massive conflict, starting a fight, flight attendants needing to sort that out. And I always keep wondering about what is going on? Why? What triggers us so much if somebody bumps into us, for example, or doesn't give us the space when I'm in the middle seat to put my arm down, that we become so aggressive right away? And there might have been some other stuff going on that we obviously don't see superficially when I watch a video or clip quickly on social media. But I also wonder, where is the sense of care for one another gone? Where is the communication gone? Where I call it out and say for a moment, hey, I love your singing, and I love that you are having fun. At the same time, I'm really trying to focus. I would love to watch this movie here while we are on this flight, and I have a little baby next to me who's trying to sleep as well, and just talk about it without me taking it personally, then taking it personally. And I think it comes back. I sound like a broken record, but to this personal responsibility that we've also got to take to make sure, we feel okay, but we also look out for others. And
of course,
there is
yeah, and
shift
some
happening.
of the things we've spoken about here, there are certain technical problems. There was a time when flights were often half full, half empty. In recent years, because so many airlines went out of business, we don't find that. We find many flights are filled to capacity or almost to capacity.
Yeah.
And my wife had an incident. It was right after October 7th, when we were flying, and there was one seat on the plane literally open when she got on. And she was sitting next to somebody who was quite hostile towards her and was very uncomfortable. And the flight attendant was able to figure out how to switch seats. If it's a group, the opportunity to move people may be quite limited, especially if it's a group singing, because that kind of takes over the whole plane. But also, when crowds start to behave a certain way, there's an inertia there. And we talk about mob mentality. I don't think that's quite the term to use in a situation like this, but it can be very difficult to stop a crowd from continuing in a particular type of behavior, which just makes intervention much more difficult.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I might be more nervous as well about stepping in as an
Yeah.
individual.
Confronting a crowd, absolutely.
Well, that's right. That's why it's more important to put it in the planning and preparation and prepare people. They know what to expect than the outcome. Do you know what I think? I think it's time for a song. Colin's not finding this very
No.
Let it be, let it be.
But the difference is that if I started singing right now, people could jump off the live stream. You could all go off and do what you're doing. In a situation like that, all these thousands of feet above, you're trapped for 8 or 10 hours in that hostile situation or fun situation, whatever you want to call it. So you're trapped in that space. And I think that that's really where the difference is, that there's no escaping.
Yeah, I think the other ultimate threat that the pilot could threaten them with is we will land in, even though we're in the air, meant to be in the air for 8 or 10 hours, I can land anywhere, not literally, but pretty much anywhere, because it's about safety and I can get that to happen. And therefore you'll be taken off, be delayed, etc., etc. You might miss the concert. And it's like having a bank of of things that he can call upon. That wouldn't necessarily be the first one. But there's another bit in this which came up when Jonathan was talking about rights and responsibility, is about the individuals who are struggling, feeling heard, that actually the flight attendants have listened to them properly and have actually understood how difficult it might be and played that back, could, in their own way, even though the ideal is where it's removed, the situation is removed from them, that might actually be helpful. So the opportunity for the attendants to listen after things have been set up, again, might be really helpful to people.
We have to wrap up in a minute or two, so I just want to get a couple of comments in. Natalie says, I believe we need to consider the environment. An airplane is a pressurized tin can. One can't escape, and if you're struggling with flying, etc., such noise could have a severely detrimental effect on a person. Stephen Covey says it well: seek first to understand before being understood. I believe there is a huge benefit for all when we realize deeply how our actions might affect others, which is very much in line with our approach here. And James makes an interesting point. He says, what is the social agreement that is implied when signing up to fly? We talk about social contract, where we take responsibility for adhering to the norms of society. So what defines the norms of society in a situation like this? Singing on a plane is unusual, but when the majority spontaneously chooses to act in a way that, ostensibly is not harmful, do we say that becomes the norm, or do we say they're violating the norm? I'm not sure that there's going to be an easy answer to that question. So I know, Kathleen, you have some time limits, so we're going to, I think, bring it to a close here. Although for when the episode posts in a couple of weeks, there is a backstage conversation that takes place, and you can find that over on my Substack account. So for now, thank you all. I wasn't sure how this was going to go, and it's been a very thoughtful, engaging discussion that's opened up a lot of angles on something that's a little more, maybe down to earth isn't the right expression for being 40,000 feet in the air, but so thank you, Toni McLelland, Cathleen O'Sullivan, Colin Smith. Very grateful for you and your time and thought. And for those of you who are watching or listening, if you have a topic you'd like us to take up, please go to my website, ethicsninja.com. Use the contact information. Submit your idea if it's compelling. We will take it up at a future episode. And until then, always I continue to remind you and advise you and encourage you to grapple with the gray.